And if you don't think we're living in peril today, look around. I mean, it's crazy. Every time you pick up the phone, if you look on the news, if you read a newspaper, if you listen to the radio, everything you hear is an example of the peril that we are in today. Storms, accidents, all types of sickness, you name it. It's everywhere we look. And that's peril that we're living in. And if we're not careful and we get bogged down into that, and I told our men that this morning, I said, if we're not careful, we will be overcome by grief, oppression, depression, all of those things that would come against us, and it will push you into a very dark and grim place. But the Bible said in verse number 7, he said, "Be patient, therefore, brethren, unto the coming of the Lord." Out of all the things that are going on in life today, out of all the things that I have dealt with in 2023, the one thing that keeps my head above water is the fact of knowing that in everything that's happening, I am one day closer to the coming of Jesus Christ. I'm one day closer to being able to go home in eternity. Every day that passes, every ticking of the clock puts me one moment closer to the return of the Lord. But I got to be patient. I can't give up. I can't give in. I can't quit what I know to do and just say, I'm tired of doing this. Do I get tired? Sure. Do you get tired? I guarantee you do. The Bible tells us not to become weary in well-doing, but that's easy to happen. It's easy to do sometimes. Sometimes we just get to the point where we think, why try? Why this? Why that? We cannot give in to those things, but we have got to be patient and wait upon the Lord and his returning. He went on to say, "Behold, the husbandman waiteth for the precious fruit of the earth, and hath long patience for it." Now, I got out there one day last week, Thursday I guess it was, and I planted my first sets of tomatoes. Got everything set up, Kenny. It was nice, man. The plot broke up good. I got it all ready, and I planted about 12 tomato plants, and it come a hurricane that night, and it beat all 12 of them to death. I walked out there. I do think there were 2 that might look like they was going to make it. I said, geez. So I went back and I replanted. And then I planted more. And then I planted the squash, and I planted, all the different things that I plant every year. And I sit there and I'm watching a plant that's sticking above the dirt about this tall. And I'm just sitting there thinking, man, one of these days, I'm going to finally get to go out there, and I'll get to pick a tomato, or I'll get to pick a cucumber, or I'll get to pick a squash. But right now, it just doesn't look like much. Right now, after every rain, I have to run out there and think, well, is it going to survive? Did it get beat up? Did it get washed off? All those things. But as it begins to flourish, and as it begins to grow, then my hope becomes more evident that we're going to receive fruit off of it. But I've got to be patient. I don't like that. I have a habit of when I plant the garden, I get up every morning before I go get in my truck to go to work, and I just go out and I look and I see what's, has anything grown? And, it's sort of like sitting there watching the pot, waiting on water to boil. It just don't seem like it's ever going to happen. But I want to see it, and I'm not patient, and I want it to hurry up. And if there was a method that I could use in order to do that, to make it hurry up, I'd be doing it. But there's not. There's nothing that I can do except wait. But I'm waiting with anticipation. I'm waiting with expectation that something's good is going to become of this. We have to wait on God in the same fashion. No, I'm not seeing a big change every day. I'm not seeing great results every day. But I'll accept just the minute bit of growth. I walk around and I check my fruit trees at my house. And I've got fruit trees all around my place. And I walk around, JoJo, and about the first or second week of March, man, I got to looking and all of them were blossomed and bloomed out and the leaves were everywhere. And my old fig tree that I done preached about forever, it was greening up and doing all this stuff. And lo and behold, the freeze came. And it burned all the leaves off. And all the fruit most likely will not be on there. I'm seeing a few small things, but not much. You know, and I thought, man, why does this have to happen like this? I'm not patient when it comes to waiting. But let me tell you what, no matter how impatient I am not going to speed the process up one little bit. I'm just going to run myself ragged being impatient. And I want to see the fruit. I want to see the results. But if I do, I got to wait. I know it's coming, but I got to wait because it's not here yet. He went on to say, and hath long patience for it until he received the early and the latter rain. I've got to have the rain in order for it to work. Now, I think this week I'm probably going to get the rain. As a matter of fact, I got an idea yesterday evening. I said, I think I'll run out here and I'll finish planting all the peas and everything in the garden. And then I looked at the weather and they said 5 inches of rain. I said, I believe I'll wait. I think I'll just hold up another week. Because I feel like if I plant them, somebody down around Ferris Park will probably be picking them. Because that's where they're going to all wash off to. So I think I'll wait, Brother James. Somebody else is going to get the fruit of that labor if I plant them right now. So we're going to hold off on it and see. But I want to. I want to get it done. I want to see the results. I want to see them spring forth. And I want to watch it grow because I know that there's fruit that's going to come from it. Verse number 8. Be ye also patient, establish your hearts, for the coming of the Lord draweth nigh. It's coming, but I got to wait. Grudge not one against another, brethren, lest ye be condemned. Behold, the judge standeth before the door. Folks, we're living in a world right now, and I've never, especially as a kid, I can remember hearing about people fighting over this and feuding over that or whatever, but normally that's what it was. It was a fight and it was over with and everybody was good and people went on. I've never seen so much disgruntledness as what I do now. It fascinates me that people are that unhappy, and that's really it. So many people are just unhappy, and so because they want everybody else to be unhappy along with them. Well, I'm going to tell you, I'm not unhappy. I'm not unhappy. And don't take this wrong, because I'm not trying to be offensive. But if you're unhappy, I don't want your unhappiness. I don't need your garbage to clutter up my life. I don't need your garbage, and I'm not saying yours as a person or individual. I just don't need people's junk to tear down my happiness. Because let me tell you where my happiness lies in God. It's the only thing that I can reach for and find true joy and true peace and true happiness in. Money won't do it. Prestige won't do it. Popularity won't do it. Things won't do it. None of that stuff, it won't do it. It won't do it. It's all in Jesus. that's where happiness comes from. And so I don't need, I tell people all the time, these ears, they're not a garbage pit. So I don't need garbage dumped in them. That's not what it's for. And so you don't need it in yours either, I'll tell you. And, but I see people all the time, man, especially, like I call them keyboard warriors. Everybody likes to get on their little computer and post something, about grumbling or griping and fighting and fussing and doing all those kinds of things, Go tell them. Do what the Bible said. Go to them and say, hey, I got a problem. How are we going to work this out? How are we going to do it? That's what the Bible said do. The Bible didn't say tell the world about all the garbage that's going on in your life. That's not what we need to do. We got to keep it. Don't have the grudge. If you got a grudge against somebody, go work it out. Go tell them. Talk to them. Be a man or a woman and say, hey, let's work this out. Verse number 10. He said, take, my brethren, the prophets who have spoken in the name of the Lord for an example of suffering, affliction, and of patience. Now, in this scripture, he likened patience with affliction. If I have to wait, it's like being afflicted. I'm going to just tell you. It induces pain sometimes to have to wait when you're not patient. He likened it unto affliction. Pain of waiting because we are a microwave generation. We are. If we cannot stick it in a microwave and it come out done like we wanted and do it within a matter of about 2 minutes, we think there's too much trouble involved. I was talking to somebody the other day, and we were talking about doing a garden and all, and I do a rather large garden, to be honest, but I like to do it. I like to work in it and do the things. And so I was doing it, and I had this younger person tell me, he said, man, I wished I liked it like you do, but I just don't. I said, well, you don't have no problem eating it. I'm not going to sit there and tell you that. I kept hearing something bubbling, and I couldn't figure out it's the baptistry. Okay, I'm good now. I was like, I didn't know what it was. I could just hear something bubbling up. But I told him, I said, I can't tell you that I like spending hours, plucking grass and sweating and doing all those types of things. But I love the results of what it is. I love what it produces, and I enjoy that, and I do it. But, it takes work in order to proceed to be able to gain anything. Nothing's free. I heard people all the time say, it's cheaper just to go to the grocery store. Well, maybe. I don't know. I doubt it now. But it probably at one point it was, But I guarantee you, it might be cheaper, but it won't never taste as good. I just like it. But it takes work to put into it. If you want to get something out of your walk with God, you're going to have to put something into it. If you're going to receive anything in this life, unless you're relatives with Bill Gates or whoever else those folks are, I can't even think of their names, you are probably not going to get anything out of life unless you put something into it. I jokingly tell people all the time that I don't have to have an alarm clock in order to wake me up to get me to go to work in the morning. I said the bank calls every morning just to make sure I'm feeling okay and that I'm going to be able to go in. That's not true, but sometimes that's sort of how I feel, I had a guy ask me one time, he said, do you live to work or do you work to live? I thought about that. And I realized something. I've done both. I used to live to work. That was That was what I developed myself into. I mean, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, drop of a hat, you name it. I lived to work. I don't do that anymore, thankfully. I am so thankful God has moved me into a place that I now work to live. There's a big difference. There's a big difference. Difference in how I feel, difference in how I look at things, difference in all. But I'm still want to see results. I'm not patient. I'm not. I want to see it. A lot of times I look at drawings and blueprints of buildings and structures, and I look at them on paper, and I like doing that too. Don't get me wrong. It gets me excited when I can sit there and look at all of that stuff and map it out. But when I start to see it come together, when I start to see it happening, it becomes life, and it's exciting. That's what we like to see. And pardon me. He said in verse number 11, "Behold, we count them happy which endure. Ye have heard of the patience of Job, and have seen the end of the Lord, that the Lord is very pitiful and of tender mercy. But above all things, my brethren, swear not, neither by heaven, neither by earth, neither by any other oath, but let your yea be yea, and your nay, nay, lest ye fall into condemnation." You know what he's saying? Be patient, but be who you are. You know the one thing I don't ever want to have to do, and I have, I'll be honest, I don't want to have to apologize for who I am. I want to have to apologize for what you see. And I hope and pray that what you see standing here this morning is the very same person that you're going to see in the midnight hour or at 2 o'clock in the morning or whenever, wherever you run across me. I hope that you can see that's the same person, because that's one thing I don't want to be. I don't want to ever have to apologize for being what I am, because I should never have to apologize for what God has made me into. If I have to apologize for something, it's because I've changed the mold. It's because I've changed the outcome, not what God has done, because I've changed it. And so I don't ever want to have to apologize for who I am or what God has allowed me to be or any of those things. Let your yea be yea. Now, I will tell you, there's a lot of times, if and I tell people this a lot, they'll ask me a question, especially if it comes to political stuff or something like that, and they will ask, and I'll say, okay, you asked. So if you asked, that means you want an answer, so I'm fixing to give you my answer. Here's my answer. Now, and I definitely don't want that to be offensive, but you asked, okay? He said, let your yea be yea. Let your nay, let it be nay. So know who you are. I cannot stand wishy-washy individuals. They just want to go with the flow. If there's 5 yays, they want to be a yay. If there's 5 nays, they want to be the nays. It doesn't matter what they really think or what they believe or whatever. Let me tell you what, if you are going to make it, if you are going to live for God, you're going to have to know who you are. You're going to have to know who you are. Stand up for who you are. Because we'll never make it just going with every wind of doctrine that blows along. Because believe me, they'll blow along. There'll be a lot of them. In verse number 13, he said, is any among you afflicted? Let him pray. Is any merry? Let him sing psalms. Is any sick among you? Let him call for the elders of the church, and let them pray over him, anointing him with oil in the name of the Lord. And the prayer of faith shall save the sick, and the Lord shall raise him up. And if he have committed sins, they shall be forgiven him. Let me tell you, we deal with sickness. I don't know how many of you have never been sick. Anybody? Didn't think so. Yeah. We all deal with sickness at some point in time. I will tell you this. There was a time about 10:30 last night that this old boy honestly didn't think I would be here today. I got choked last night on a jelly bean. On a jelly bean. I love jelly beans. I do. I like Jolly Rancher sour jelly beans. And my wife buys them for me. And I was sitting in my recliner last night, and she was sitting there on the couch. She and I were talking, and I was eating jelly beans. One at a time. I was chewing them up and enjoying them, and I swallowed them. Well, I was chewing on one, and I honestly don't know what happened. I really don't. I don't know if I inhaled and just sucked it into my throat or what it did. But when I did, it immediately cut my air off. And so I tried to inhale, and I couldn't. And it made the god-awfulest sound. It was crazy. And Carol freaked. And she looked at me, and I just tried to remain calm. I was trying to think of how am I going to do the Heimlich on myself. I knew what I was fixing to have to do, and I was trying to remain calm, but I couldn't get it up. And I was just on the verge of probably fixing to go out. And I got just enough air, and I coughed with everything. I kid you not, when I did dislodge it, all the way down both my arms was killing me in pain. I thought I was fixing to leave this work. And I was doing it calmly. I wasn't trying to freak her out. Of course, that wasn't working either. She just kept calling my name in a very loud tone, and it wasn't like I could say what. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't say nothing. And so I finally dislodged a half chewed up jelly bean, and I sat there, and she kept saying, "Are you okay?" And I would just, "Yes, I'm okay. I'm fine. Just give me a few minutes." I hurt from head to toe. And, I really had almost resolved to the fact, hey, this is a terrible way to go, but those jelly beans are going to take this boy out. Leave here on a jelly bean. So I took my jelly beans as soon as I got through, and I went and threw them in the garbage. I said, I'm done. I want no more jelly beans. I've had it. That's it. But I say all of that to say this. We all deal with sickness. And we deal with things that come our way and in our life. When we were given the news about my dad, the very first thing, of course, your mind runs in a million different ways, and you start thinking about all the stuff that could be, might be, how it could come about, and all of this. The hardest thing that we dealt with was having to wait. Having to wait. Because you want an answer. And you want to know what to do, or how bad is it, or what's next, and all these different questions. And in all honesty, it's not like you can just call up the doctor and say, hey, I need to know this, and this. Well, most of them will call you back. We had great medical care. We had a great team of physicians. We had all those things. It was wonderful. They were caring and compassionate. But still, it was that having to wait and just not knowing what to expect next and what the outcomes was going to be and all of those things. And we dealt with that. And thankfully, my sister and I were able to sort of feed off each other, and we would encourage each other that, hey, we're going to make this together. Well, this is what we got to do. And my wife just stepped up to the plate, I'll tell you, from the day one. And just, I can't tell you enough about all the things that she did to help and to go through this process with Dad. And she made it easier for him. But it was waiting. And I can remember laying my head down on my pillow at night and letting tears run out of my eyes. And I said, I just want to know what to do. I want to know what I need to do. What's the right thing and all of that. There was no patience about me. I'll be honest. Even in affliction, there was no patience. I didn't want to wait. I did not want to wait. I didn't want to wait a day. I certainly did not want to wait a week. I didn't want to wait a month. None of those things. I wanted to know what I needed to do, where we need to go, what's the next step, all of those things. But the whole time, God had everything that we needed mapped out. No, didn't turn out like this old boy would have written it out. It didn't end like I wanted it to. But I can rest assured that it ended like it needed it to. That I'm comfortable in. When God puts us, or I'm not going to say puts us, when God allows us to face affliction, many times it's not for our pain, it's for our growth, it's for our benefit. You say, well, how do I benefit in affliction? It'll teach you a lot of things. It teaches us patience. Again, I don't like it. If you ask me next week if I like patience, the answer is going to be the same. No. I don't like to wait. I am not a very patient person. I know I'm not. But it teaches us patience. But the one thing that I can say it taught me more than anything was love. It taught me how to love on my dad. I tell you something that was very funny. It's funny now. When the day before Dad passed away, him and Carol, Carol was his girl. She and Haley both. And they would walk by and say, Pops, I love you. And of course he was going, he would tell them 25 times that he loved them before he'd tell me once. I knew he loved me. He didn't have to do it. So the day before he passed away, we were in there, and I was fixing to walk out of the room, and I said, Pop, I love you. He said, I love you. And we walked on, so Carol comes behind me. She said, Pop, I love you. He wouldn't say a word. He didn't say a word. Haley walked up and said, Pop, I love you. He didn't say a word. Waited a few minutes, and I walked back by him. I said, I love you, Pop. He said, I love you. Carol said it again. He wouldn't say a word. And I laughed so hard. I said, if he could have done anything to ruffle her feathers just a little bit, that was it. That was it. Somebody said, no, boy, said he was taking that last time to just let you know that he loved you. I knew that. There wasn't no doubt. But it was the punching that he did. He loved to do that kind of stuff. He loved to mess with Carol and Haley and all those things. But through all of that stuff, it taught me how to love. It taught me, I told the guys this morning. I had actually a friend of mine, he wrote a thing on Facebook. A very young man who passed away unexpectedly this past week. And he wrote a thing on Facebook. He said, we as men, we don't like to tell other men that we love them. That's just not a masculine thing. I'm the same way. I'm careful with that. But he said, I don't care who you are. He said, you tell the people that you them know, let them hear that, because you never know when you might not get that opportunity. Patience, affliction teaches us things like love and compassion. It teaches us to do those things for people that ordinarily we just wouldn't do. Ordinarily we just wouldn't think about it. I got to spend the best 6 months of my adult life with Dad, doing the things that I had time to do. Was it patient? I wasn't patient because I was wanting answers. And yeah, I felt like it was affliction because it hurt like crazy. Every single day, it hurt. But I told my sister and my wife, I said, you know, when all of this is said and done, the one thing I want to be able to do is to look back and say, I have zero regrets. That was the only thing I asked for. The only thing I wanted to be able to do is just say, I have no regrets whatsoever. And I can stand before you today and say, yeah, it hurt, and I was not patient, but I have zero regrets today. Why? Because God had a plan. Perfect plan. I'm going to sit here and act like I like it. Didn't. But it was a perfect plan. It's exactly what we need when we need it. So, I'm not asking you to pray for patience. That's up to you. But I'm telling you that when we go through circumstances, when we go through situations that are tough, and we will, I mean, the Bible says that we are, you know. When you go through them, know that God's got a plan for your outcome, no matter what it is. Let's go before the Lord in prayer now. Lord Jesus, we love you, God. We are so grateful today, Lord, for your awesome word. We're thankful today, God, that though me personally, God, I'm not very patient, that God, even in the midst of affliction, you're able to teach us such awesome lessons. You're able to show us what love is and what compassion is and what mercy is, oh God. And God, I pray, Lord, today that we're able to display that before the world, God. Let us stand before not just you, but before mankind, God, reflecting the light of Christ in each one of our lives. God, that they see something different, that they see something in us, that, Lord, that you want to be reflected in. And God, I ask you, Lord, today that you go with us, Lord, lead us, guide us, direct us, open up the doors before us that you would have us to go into. In Jesus' awesome and mighty name.